I'm going to head back over here, and I'm going to welcome to the stage from Shure, Sam Sabet, and from IDC, Mick Heys.
Thank you.
Any two seats.
Go in the middle?
A lot of choices here, so.
Okay, I'll go here.
Sounds good.
Hi, so I'm really lucky. I've got the easiest job of this session. I'm lucky on two counts. The topic, the human element, and we'll look at why that is in a second. And I'm here with Sam, who knows all the answers, so how hard could it be?
I'll make them up as we go along.
Yeah, so in the best interview fashion, I've got my cards, but when I say I'm lucky with the topic, we've been trying to sort out this hybrid working for a long time, haven't we? Since the pandemic, we've been trying to do it. We've got 86% of organizations in Europe who offer flexible working of some kind, but then we've got 96% of them report some kind of problems. And the interesting one is, culture is the same as technology. 22% have culture problems, 22% have technology problems. And, if we think about it, we've got the offices, we've got the office space, and we've redesigned them. So typically that's 30 to 40% of companies redesign one of their offices in some way every year in Europe. So that's okay. Right. Home workers, we don't have the supply chain issues anymore. If they need a monitor, they can get a monitor if they need a laptop. So that's not the problem. And then choice of technology, you had to walk past a whole universe of technology to get into this session. So, it comes down to the people. So I think we've got the best topic because I think that is the theme of the show now. We've tried everything else. Now we've finally got to pay attention to that human element. And, so to start off, I want to talk about that technology. We have an incredible rate of technology development, the AI, the improvements in quality, etc., ongoing. How do you design for that without overwhelming people with the rate of change?
Yeah, so Mick, you actually said something very interesting that you started by saying, we're figuring out how to work in this hybrid world. And first of all, I've stopped using the word hybrid work.
Yeah, it's just work,
right? I mean, it's just a new world, and we just have to figure out how we manage it. It's no longer hybrid. I think it's just flexible, right? Wherever. Yeah. And having said that, the second part to it is, you're absolutely right. We're still trying to figure what that new world looks like. Every day now you listen to the news, this company is forcing a return to office. This other company is pitching that 4-day week or flexible weeks or whatever the case is. And to be fair, all those mandates are great coming from the top. But then when people come into the office, they really don't, they want to see a value in that, right? Yeah. If I'm going to commute the 2 hours a day, then it better be worth my investment of commuting. So those 2 hours are basic. I better be a lot more productive during the other 8 hours to make up for those 2 hours of commute. And I don't know that we understand what that means yet. What is it that increases that productivity to make it worthwhile? And obviously, you still look at it today, and when you go in, the first thing you want to do is collaborate. Otherwise, why am I not just at home doing my job? And if I'm going to travel into the office and get on I don't know about everybody here, but the thing I hate the most is I get into the office and then I spend most of my day on a Teams call in my office, right? It's like, what was the point?
Yeah.
And I do that a lot with my team. I'm like, wait a minute, I flew in and then the rest of the team is still home. What was the point, right? But, you will always have the situation where it's a mix. Some people are remote, and it doesn't even have to be at home. I mean, most of us work in a global environment. We've got people across the pond, or we have people in Asia, and we're all on this call, and we are inside the conference room at the same time. first of all, that conference room has changed tremendously. It's no longer all of us sitting around a table and, just talking. The reason you've come into the office is to brainstorm, to collaborate, to whiteboard, to have more discussions. Anyway, long story to get you to the point to say that we really, really need to be flexible. That is the theme of today's technologies in my mind, is that if you cookie cutter a solution based on what you think you need to solve today, I guarantee you're going to be wrong tomorrow.
Yeah.
So how do we design for that? Flexibility, scalability, all that matters. But it just has to be adaptable in a sense, right? If we found one thing, is that our workspace today is not static anymore. It's dynamic. It changes based on the needs of what your current focus is, what you're trying to work on. And as we just said, people are still trying to figure it out. So, tomorrow or 6 months from now, you're going to reimagine your space because you've learned more about how to work in this environment. And it's unrealistic to assume that you're just going to rip all that technology out and start again just because you decided to reconfigure the way you're going to do business. So the best way to secure that investment or to get the most of it is to invest in technology that can grow and be flexible and adaptable to that environment.
Yeah, yeah. So, you've got to design for different people, different roles. We do a lot of research where we ask the employers what they think, and then we ask the employees. Oh, yeah. My favorite one is 29% of employees think their boss doesn't trust them to work at home, and 30% of bosses don't trust their employees to work at home. So you got 1% are in for a big shock during the appraisal. But and that's one of the closest. We have wide divergences, but then going into that, you've got different roles, you've got different verticals. So, to Gary's point, how do you get the information to start even making decisions on what this product is going to be like?
Yeah, you especially know what it's like to do focus groups and to deal with end users and be able to dive into what their needs are. We do a lot of that, and it's actually apropos that the next topic is design thinking, because that's really at the crux of figuring out how to be end user focused. Having said that, we are true believers of, by the way, you don't know what you need until or what you want until you see it. So we tend to have a lot of, we call them innovation pods, but they're really immersion pods within the user environment, right? We will, from concept all the way to final design of a product, it's an iterative process of continuing to engage with those end users. We create different, what I'll call representative personas of the different types of users that we start out by brainstorming initially on, what is the need of each one of those. But that's not enough, because if you follow what they tell you is the need and you take those requirements and run, again, I guarantee you'll be wrong. Okay. So you need to go back and keep reinforcing those ideas, and we'll actually immerse ourselves into the workflow of that end user and go through it. And we start with the most basic of prototypes that's duct taped together and thrown together with a black sheet on top of it, so you can't see the things dangling out of it. And then as it matures and becomes into a product, we're continuously going out and getting more sophisticated, carrying out more tasks, and that really informs us at the very end of what is it that the user needs to be efficient.
So the people are telling you what they want, but that's not actually what they want when you give it to them. Is that?
It never really is.
Oh,
right?
really? It never is.
It's you can imagine what you think you need, but once you start playing with it and actually using it in real life, your mind changes, right?
Yeah, yeah. And then just going back to the personas, when we were talking earlier, you told me how many you kind of classify.
Yeah, absolutely. If you take each of our designers and our user experience designers and ask them, what do you think your customer base is? And can you define the different levels of personas? we end up with upwards of 50 to 80 different personas,
Yeah,
right?
I mean,
and it's, you can't design for
no,
that.
that's the point. You can't design for that, but you take it into account. You know, that is the most personas I've ever come across. So that's what impressed me.
Yeah, hence why I say you really need to pick representative personas, right? You need to condense them down into, okay, how do you address the largest populations of those as possible?
Yeah. And so we got to say AI. You have to say AI in every presentation. But I think this is interesting in this space. And, you know, I tell this story a lot because it's a little bit embarrassing. So I was in a meeting where the AI was doing the meeting notes, and I can see what it's transcribing. I had my colleague with me who I had to introduce. So what I said was, here is Nathan from our consulting team. And what it transcribed was, here is Nathan from our insulting team. So, you know, that might be the best AI analyzing what it thinks I said, but it didn't get what I said. But that, you know, that's quite a big difference in intent. So, you know, how do you make it understand my flat Manchester accent?
Interesting. So, first of all, I did count. You reached your quota. You said AI six times, right?
Relax.
So we have to have the exact number there. But, you know, AI is a game changer in our world today, right? I mean, I do not work the same way I worked a couple of years ago. I am more efficient using AI. I can not have to go to every single meeting and sit there for 2 hours for a 5-minute blurb where I really care about that information. If I'm not at a meeting because I'm triple booked, which I'm sure we all do, I can be sure that I'm going to get action items and be notified of the areas that I care about, get accurate minutes. All that's great. But I found the only way this works is if I can trust that AI to get me the information. If I end up having to second guess it and go back and verify, I've just doubled the amount of work, right? It's just a waste of time. Why did we do this all AI thing and then come back and go over it again manually? So you really need to be able to trust the accuracy of what it's telling you. And it's not magic, right? The AI is only as good as the data that's fed into it. And that means intelligibility and accuracy and fidelity of the audio, the video that's coming into the AI for it to make whether there's transcriptions or a lot of times a speaker attribution, who said what in the meeting, all of that really relies on getting pristine data into the AI, and then you can trust its accuracy and be able to use it fully. But if you go down this path, and is there a question in the audience? Can we leave that for? I'm sorry? Yeah, why don't we wait till we're done? Just thank you, though.
You're first, definitely.
Yes, absolutely. Just because I had a train of thought.
Okay,
Yeah, but you know, you only get efficiency by raising up that trust of the end user, and you only get that trust by proving the accuracy over time, right? And so data coming in has to be absolutely flawless so that it can be. And generally that translates to, you know, the audio in the room, and it all goes back to this concept that with our meetings, when our meeting spaces being dynamic, the equipment in the room has to be dynamic and adapt and be able to optimize to that point where you're getting that accuracy back in.
Yeah, so it's not just fidelity, it's fidelity of the voices and not the extraneous.
Yeah, so number one is, instead of using fidelity, I'll use intelligibility, right?
Yeah.
You've got to be able to understand what's being said. Secondary is, yeah, I mean, ironically, AI feeding AI, we're constantly relying on new AI algorithms to give you the desired input, which is the voice, and remove the undesired input, which is all the background noise, the chips, bag of chips, example, the clicking of the keyboard, all of that. But essentially it's, you know, signal to noise ratio. How do we make the signal higher so that the person so that the AI is getting the correct data, the accurate data, and ultimately translates to intelligibility and accuracy from the AI.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think the other topic we need to do is security. 31% of companies say when purchasing this kind of equipment in the next 18 months, that's going to be one of the top priorities. So, you know, how do we manage the security here? And then we kind of almost conflate security and privacy. Well, they're two separate issues. So, you know, it's my voice, it's my identity,
Yep.
it's what I said.
Yeah, thank you for putting that up there, because, yeah, a lot of people I talk to really do end up conflating security and privacy, and they are very interdependent, absolutely no doubt about it. But, you know, you're only, I guess the best way to look at security is you're only as good as your weakest link in the system, if you will. So. Yeah. It's not a matter of security in just one area or concentrating on securing your endpoints, or a lot of people, because in their mind they're thinking security equates to privacy, are thinking, I hope my data is secure in the cloud.
Yeah.
But certainly the cloud is not the only place where you need to look at security, because if you get through that entire ecosystem, that chain at a lower level, you're only as good as your weakest link. Yeah. And so, you know, we partner with a lot of the providers along that chain, and we all need to do our part to secure that system. And the endpoint manufacturer is no different. I mean, I will tell you at Shure, we invest heavily into ensuring that the endpoints are very secure. And to be fair, we've come a long way as an industry. We've got some really great industry standards on security, whether it's encryption or authentication. But then upstream, that data that is yours, that your voice, your face print, etc., also needs to be secured and not shared. And there's your privacy across the path, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and then as we're going through them all, sustainability is the obvious next one. So we saw some stats earlier in the session. You know, our research shows 40% of purchasers now see that as a top priority. So, you know, it's an interesting one in this space. We put the arguments aside of, you know, if you have great video conferencing, effectively, you don't have to travel. But, you know, if you take that as a given, what about the sustainability of these products?
Very good question. And I think, by the way, it's no coincidence that there is a theme across everything we're talking about here, and it's all around flexibility, adaptability. And the reason I say that is because, you know, there are staples or basic things that we know we need to do in the industry of sustainability. And everybody talks about the sustainability of the packaging, the material being used, et cetera, et cetera. And that we absolutely have a commitment to do this. We absolutely need to do this. But if you start looking at a more macro level and you think to yourself, you know, when you invest in equipment, when you invest in technology, and that technology doesn't serve its purpose or doesn't grow with your needs, and 2 to 3 years down the road, you need to refresh that technology. Well, where does that old technology go? I mean, that's a huge amount of waste that is, no matter how sustainable the original material is, you've just kind of wasted all that effort. And so the biggest impact I think that we as manufacturers can make towards sustainability is to design towards future use, to design so that you are investing in a platform that will grow and adapt to your needs over time. And we're really, really, really laser focused on this concept of quality and ensuring that the product you invest in today, and funny enough, AI helps us with this today, right? Because if you design towards an AI focused feature set, then you know you need to size that technology to a certain level, you need to size that platform to a certain level, and it will continue to add value and grow to your needs because you're adding more AI feature sets to it, right? And so it grows with you. What does that do for you? It prolongs the life of your investment, and therefore by doing that, you're also making a huge impact on sustainability.
Yeah. Yeah, great. I'm conscious of the clock, and we have a question. So if we take some questions from the audience, and I think there is there's a mic.
Yeah, thanks for your interesting conversation. I've got lots of questions, but I'll ask one.
We've got 5 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, I've filtered. So, in the example that Sam was talking about, when you might have a team of designers looking at a product and you might identify 50 to 80 personas, given the state of AI today, would you then go back to the team of designers and say, okay, let's filter this, let's look at common characteristics, and we'll find one element, which is the need of those 50 to 80 personas for our product? Or is that the point in which you go to AI and say, what would AI do with all these 50 or 80 to combine them into one persona for our product?
So first of all, you touched on a good point, which is the use of AI in design itself, right? Which is great. It has made things more efficient. But putting that aside for a second and talking about the personas concept, first of all, I don't think you can design for a single persona and just please everybody, right? It's almost impossible to do that. Right, exactly. So you really need to design towards what I'll call a spectrum of different types of users, from the power user to the medium user to the novice or end user who just wants to go into a conference room and press a button and everything works. And so common criteria for those personas makes sense, but it's impossible to just condense it down to a single representative and just design for that. You really, again, the common theme of flexibility, adaptability, that also carries through to the types of end users you're dealing with. Guaranteed, we are not designing towards 80 personas because we'll never get done. We're also not designing to one because we'll never be successful, right? There has to be a compromise there.
I think we've got time for one reasonably quick question.
There's a list, but we'll do that off stage. How about that?
Anyone?
Yeah, I've got a quick one if nobody else does. Yeah. So, we talked about AI, sustainability, security, It comes down to cash in the end, doesn't it? People have got to invest their money. They've got to see productivity. And, is there a way to measure the return on investment in this space, for the finance director, shall we say?
Yeah. Well, first of all, you get what you pay for. But let's think about everything we've just talked about, right? And what actually happens how do you measure that return on investment? And there's two things that come to mind. The first and foremost is, if you're solving for all the problems we just mentioned, by the way, you are solving for value, right? I mean, if it's adaptable, if it grows with you, if it's able to be efficient because of the quality of the audio coming, all that equates to a dollar return on that investment,
yeah.
Right? So that's the first thing I'm going to say. The second thing I'm going to say, which is, you can think of it more as a cost of ownership concept, right? When you think about, when you buy a car, you don't just buy it on the sticker value of the price. You also look at cost of ownership over time, and then you can make a decision of, at least I do. Equipment is in a conference room or in the workforce is no different, right? Yeah. In the sense that, the end user might be using it well, but maintaining it might be horrible in the sense that you need an army of IT guys to maintain it and update it and go out. And that's where, having the maintenance tools like cloud support and things like that allow mass deployments and maintenance pay back towards that efficiency. The one thing I also like to say is if you outfit your rooms with a technology that doesn't work, that doesn't fit into your environment or the way you do business, then it just sits there. I mean, yeah. How many times have you seen one room being overbooked and one room completely empty because people try to use this, but everyone prefers to go into this room. And if you just do the dollar calculation and see not only how much you've invested here, but the amount of wasted real estate and et cetera, and continuing to maintain it, that's a huge loss that you just made. So I would obviously recommend that we don't make decisions based on the cost of the product on day one in installation. It may sound like it's good enough, but in this day and age where everything's changing, good enough is not good enough,
Yeah.
right? So hopefully that answered.
Yeah, thank you very much. So in the remaining seconds that we have, I'd just like to thank you, Sam, for making my job so easy today and giving us such great insights.
I appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.